let's go ahead and get started. So I want to start off with your backstory. I know you and I had a chance to talk, and I felt like you had a very interesting backstory, especially growing up, because you did not grow up in Cali. So let's go ahead and go ahead and let the people know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, not fully. So I was actually born in California. I was born in Whittier, and then I grew up in Diamond Bar until I was about 10. And my mom was in real estate. She worked for a mortgage company. So then in 2008, when the market crashed, she lost her job. So we were a single parent household, me and my brother and my mom. So we couldn't afford to stay here anymore since she lost her job. So my grandparents had lived in Missouri. Well, they lived in California too, but then when they retired, they moved to Missouri. So once my mom lost her job, we went to go stay with them for a little bit. We lived with them for a couple years until my mom was able to get a job and kind of start being able to support us more frequently, and we got our own house there, and I stayed there until I graduated high school, which is a whole experience on its own. But yeah, then I kind of realized Missouri wasn't for me. So as I kind of always knew that I would be back in California, so college was a perfect excuse. So I applied to Cal Poly Pomona, thankfully got in because it was the only California college that I applied to. So the universe really pulled a solid for me on that one. And I got accepted, and the rest is history. I came out here and got my degree in psychology, which is ultimately, I do not regret getting it, but in terms of like career wise, I don't use it. So um, yeah, and then that's when COVID hit and I started my real estate career.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, so let's backtrack a little bit. Uh, I don't think you should have any regret, right? Because it brought you back to California.
No,
What other reason
exactly.
did you
Yeah.
need?
Yeah. And especially with a psychology degree, I, it's funny because when I was in school, I never had a lot of homework, which is something that like my roommates and my friends would always, kind of like poke fun at me for because they were
Yeah.
all like engineering majors, like chem majors, like things like that. So they always had a lot of homework and I never really did. I just wrote a lot of papers. But it's proved useful because I am a very good writer, and I think I'm a kind of a good speaker. I think I know how to kind of get my thoughts across well. So definitely love my psych degree for that. It definitely taught me how to write well. So I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I just kind of took a different trajectory. Um, I ultimately knew that I did want to help people, and I thought that psychology was the way to do that. But kind of once I started working in the psych field, I realized that it wasn't really a good fit for me. Yeah, but I am very grateful that I got to experience college and kind of have that college life for a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hone in on that. You know, the psych field wasn't for you, but I wanna ask you the transitions from different states. Did you find any adversity? Was there anything you had to overcome, especially coming back from Missouri after being there for what, over 10 years?
It was
Okay.
like 7 years, yeah. I mean, honestly, I think the biggest struggle of moving back to California was driving
Mm,
because in Missouri, there are no, at least where I lived, there were no freeways, there are no like kind of two-turn lanes. So that was that was a big challenge for me when I started driving out here was getting on the freeway and understanding that like when there are two turn lanes, you need to stay in the lane that you're turning in. Like you can't cross lanes when you're turning. I almost got in some accidents, but that's honestly kind of the biggest things because I'm very grateful that I was able to come back to an area that I was already pretty familiar with because like Diamond Bar and Cal Poly Pomona are so close. So it's I kind of grew up in that area already. So it was nice being able to return to a familiar area, even though I hadn't been there for so long and I was there when I was like in Diamond Bar when I was young. Um, but it was interesting that when I still moved back so many years later, I would take like some drives in Diamond Bar and be like, oh, that was like a Quiznos that's right there and it's still there. So I kind of still had remembered where like some things were, and at least like kind of the geographical locations of a lot of things, until I was able to start like exploring the new areas that I was living. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. I think it would have been a lot worse if I had gone to college somewhere farther away from where I was already familiar with. But so I'm very grateful that I was able to kind of stick closer to where I was already, like, I already knew.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, good for you. I know it. So it seems like there was some small adaptation you had to kind of go through, but it wasn't too big. Um, so now going into my question, so you went into psych. What field did you enter when you said you went into the psych field? What career did you start off with?
So I initially wanted to go into counseling psychology. I thought I wanted to be some sort of therapist. But when I started actually working in the psych field, I was actually working as a behavioral therapist with children who have autism, which
Okay.
was a very great experience. I loved that experience. It was just unfortunate that the business that I worked for wasn't very organized in the way that they ran their business, so it made it not a very good experience to work there. But I loved working with the kids. They're absolutely incredible, and it was so nice to be able to like form connections with them, um, and kind of help them grow in ways that they have difficulty growing in. But yeah, so kind of just that administration side of things made it very difficult. And then also within the psych field, it's very difficult to find a job with just a bachelor's degree. So at that point, I had to make a decision on if I wanted to get my master's degree right away or take some time off and know that I probably wouldn't go back, because most people who take time off after their bachelor's usually don't go back to get their master's. So I kind of made that decision that I didn't want to go get my master's right away, because at that point I had already been working, and I kind of decided that, okay, this isn't exactly the route I want to go. So I was kind of just in that transition phase of figuring out, well, I have this degree now, so what do I do with it? But in the meantime, I was working at a part-time job with the city of LA in their sanitation department, which was like cool. It's actually served very useful for my job now, which is interesting how things work out that way. But it taught me a lot about like the city of LA and kind of like housing codes and zoning and everything like that. So very beneficial to me now. But
Yeah, definitely. I can see that.
yeah, and then COVID hit and I was furloughed. So that was like,
Mm.
okay, now it's time to figure something else out. And then that's when real estate came into the picture.
Yeah, yeah, no, okay, cool. That's actually a really good transition because I remember when we spoke beforehand, we talked about 2020 being a blessing in disguise for some of us, right? Not for
Mm-hmm.
everybody, but some of us saw it as an opportunity now to kind of leave what we've had a routine in, which was working either for a company, and now you had an opportunity to start doing something on your own, right? So talk about that transition. Like 2020 came, you found yourself with some time, and where did that flip switch?
Yeah, so I actually, when COVID hit, I was able to I wasn't immediately furloughed, so I was actually telecommuting for a little bit. I think like a few months before I was given the word that I was furloughed. So I was still working from home for a little bit, and then got the news that I wasn't going to be working anymore. And honestly, I kind of took some time off. Probably slacked off a little bit more than I should have, but I mean, it all worked out. So, but yeah, so I took some time off, and then kind of a few months into that is when like my partner and I were talking about like what my next steps would be. And then that's when the topic of real estate came into question, where like real estate was something that we kind of enjoyed as like a pastime. Like we would go look at like new developments and go to open houses on the weekend, like just for fun. and I never really considered doing it for like a career. And it was actually my partner who suggested it, like, well, why don't you try getting your real estate license? And I was like, oh, like I guess I never really like thought of that, because I kind of even had some misconceptions about real estate agents, you know, like they're all just sleazy and they just want their commission checks, and like they're not really like that helpful. So if anything, I think my own misconceptions kind of fueled me more to get it, because like I said from the beginning, I always knew that I wanted to help people. I just never knew in what ways that I could help people, and I never really viewed real estate as a way to help people. But now that I'm in it, it's crazy how much people don't know about real estate and how much real estate can help them, and the misconceptions that even like I myself had. So I kind of have been focusing my business on like taking that route of being very client focused, not not trying to like screw anybody over, you know, just like I want nothing but the best for my clients, and just I'm there to help them. So then in 2020, like late 2020 is when I started my courses, and it was a process because everything was still really new with COVID. So the government was very slow. So I started my courses and I finished my courses relatively quickly. Actually, it only took me like a couple months to finish them. But then after that, you have to apply just to take the exam, just where they look over like your courses and say like, okay, you did complete them, like you're good to take the test. And that process alone took like 6 months at least for them just to say like, you're good to go take the test. So like another 6 months pass, I get the word that I'm good to take a test. Then it's another process of getting an available testing date, because they only offer testing in California in very specific locations. So
Mhm.
there's one for LA, there's one up in Fresno, there's one in like Sacramento. So they're kind of like scattered throughout. There's only like a few locations that they offer to take the test. And there were no availabilities for LA, like at all, like not even like months down the road. So I was actually planning to go up to Sacramento to take my test, because there was, I think, an opening in like September of like 2021. But I don't know if I should be saying that I did this, but I gave my partner my login information for like my portal to book the test. So he would just like, we would just kind of randomly go on there just to check the availability. And one day he was like, Taylor, there's openings in LA, go book, go book. So I was able to thankfully get a date in, I think, June or July of 2021, somewhere around there. And thankfully I passed on my first time. So it was a
Yeah,
very
no,
interesting process, very long process.
that's such an amazing story. There's a few things I kind of want to highlight, Taylor. Like, first and foremost, it's awesome that you have a supportive partner. So anybody listening in who's a partner of somebody starting something new, take notes, because it means so much. And the fact that you kind of took a hobby and made it into like a new career choice is awesome. Like, how many people can say that they had the opportunity to do that? And
Yeah.
it seems like he was like, with you every step of the way, which is so cool and very supportive. And yeah, no, it's funny because being in the same boat when it comes to exams with the state, yeah, they were taking a while during 2020. So I definitely feel you there.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, you overcame, right? A lot of people would look at that and quit because, time's not on their side, especially no income coming in. It's very difficult. And, I'm glad you kind of weathered the storm and you stuck with it. And you passed on the first try. That's amazing. A lot of people will take a couple of times, but
Yeah, it was like such a breath of fresh air when I walked out with my letter. And they're when they give it to you, they tell you, they like fold it up, they print it out and they fold it up and they staple it shut, and they're like, don't open this until you get outside the building. And I'm like, okay, right. So my nosy ass went to the bathroom and opened it up right there. Like, yes, thank you.
that's funny. And I also want to highlight, your past experiences kind of molded you, and you already knew you wanted to help people. And you had misconceptions, right? You kind of owned up to it, and there may be people that work in that sense, but you took the opportunity and made it your own. And just it's funny because my last participant on my call last week, he's also a real estate agent, and he also has that approach where it's like very educational based, like informative, where you actually have the best interest in the person you're working with, which is awesome. And I want to applaud you for that because it's not easy, especially in a lucrative field where, commissions can be high, but the fact that you're sticking to your roots, you're sticking to the tailor that, you know, you already knew you had through the psychology field. It's awesome to see. Um, I always like to ask, so my next question to you, let's go ahead and talk about a success and an adversity. I typically like to start with adversities, like what's something that you've overcome in the real estate business, and then you could talk about a celebration, but it's up to you. You could go ahead and start with whichever one you want.
Well, I think I can maybe even kind of lump them because one adversity that I've faced that's been a very personal adversity to me is the fear of people not taking me seriously because I am a young woman in real estate, where
Mm.
this is a very historically older male dominated field, right? Like when you think of like typical sleazy real estate agent, you think of like an old guy with like the slick back hair and some like nice luxury car, right? So like my fear was like, well, you're just a young girl, like why would anybody want to listen to you, or why would anybody kind of take you seriously in that sense? Like they may think you don't know what you're talking about because you are so young. And that's something that was a huge adversity for me starting out, because I noticed that it was even limiting what I was doing to like kind of start my business. Because if you go back like kind of in the beginning of my Instagram, you never see me. Like it's all just very like nicely polished informational Instagram posts, because I did know that that was something that I wanted to focus my business around, was like education and real estate. So that's kind of just all I focused on, which looking back on it now, like I think I had to do that in order to get to where I am now, because my success then would be overcoming that fear and just realizing, kind of like valuing myself. Because at that point, if people don't want to work with me because I'm a young woman, then that's on them. And I can't force anybody to work with me, but then also realizing that I have the choice too of who I work with. Like where like real estate agents aren't so desperate that we'll just take any client that like comes to us, like we have the choice to work with people too. And I've really tried to focus that in my business too, of mutual respect with my clients. Like I don't want to work with anybody who isn't going to value me or my time or my work, because I've already heard so many horror stories from other women in real estate talking about like they're working with like usually older men, like they have older men as clients, and they really have to like manipulate them in order to just get them to appreciate their opinion. And it's like I don't want to focus my business around that. Like I really want to work with people who want to work with me and like kind of just value me and value what I stand for, because I am going to do right by you. You just have to let me prove it. So I would say that's been my biggest adversity, but also my biggest success, because I still am bad about not fully respecting myself and my time, but I would list it as a success that I am getting better, and I am realizing that I do need to do that in my business, because I do deserve to be respected, and I then in turn deserve to be compensated fairly for my work.
I'm cheesing so hard because I could see the personal development that you kind of had to go through to get to where you're at. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so powerful that you're able to share this with us. And to everybody who's an entrepreneur on the call, setting your standards is important because, yeah, you are the CEO of your life. You get to hire and fire the people you want, the people you don't want. So that's important. And I'm really proud of you, Taylor, for acknowledging that. And I'm sure it took some time. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with everybody else. And yeah, no, like that, it makes me feel kind of like warm hearted because I know it's not easy. And it seems like, you know, you're progressing and like you said, you're still working on it, but your confidence and the way you're speaking is so impactful. And I know, this is why I do these calls, because I know it's going to hit somebody home and they're going to be like, wow, maybe I'm doing that. Maybe I need to work on that. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for questions. So anybody who wants to drop a question in the comment section, go ahead. And Taylor, one last question for me, or actually a request, is what piece of advice would you give somebody who is starting something new that's outside of the ordinary, right? Like outside of that 9 to 5, going to college, something that kind of society has structured over the time, and getting to something new, something that's risky for some.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, I think my two biggest things would be prepare for it, but also if it's something that you're very passionate about and you're very serious about making it successful, not I don't want to say like don't give up, but pretty much like, you know, find ways to tweak your business to fit you and to fit your personality, because that's something that I'm even still working on myself. Because people, I don't know how many people that I've been talking to since I've started real estate have told me like, you need to be door knocking every day, you need to be cold calling at least like 100 people a day, where like, you know, that's perfectly fine if that works for you and for your business, like if that fits your personality, but that is completely not my personality. Like, you know, I get those calls and I hang up on them right away because they're annoying. Like they annoy me and I don't want to be that type of person. So I think I think the biggest thing is just figuring out how to alter your work day and alter like your work style in order to fit your personality best to be able to maximize your work. Because one thing that I've really tried to ingrain into my business is just an overall sense of like genuineness. Like I like to say, like I'm trying to make real estate real again, because it's so easy like for real estate to just be so transactional, like with clients, like you're just talking about like, okay, what kind of house do you want, where do you want it, how many bedrooms, how many baths, like just rifling off like the specs of a home, but not really getting to know the reasoning behind why somebody may be needing a move or why somebody may be needing to live in a certain area. Like I really want to get to those core reasons with my clients and create like genuine relationships with them, because at the end of the day, we're working together. This is a huge life decision for somebody. Like they're putting a lot of money into an investment for their future. So, and sadly, a lot of people don't know a lot of information about real estate, like about buying a home or even like the terminology involved with it. So just any step of the way that I can be there to educate them in a non-judgmental way, like that's just what I'm here for. So I would say just figure out what type of business you want to run and like whatever practices fit your personality best, because when you're being genuine, that shines through, and I think people will want to work with you and they'll respect you more when you're just you.
100%. All right, so we have one question. I don't know if you could see it, but I'll read it out to you. How are you handling your bookkeeping for your business? It's my first year as a business owner and I have an idea, but I'm not 100% sure on it. Just want to get your thoughts.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'll be completely honest. I've only had one transaction since I've started. So my bookkeeping has been very minimal. But since I am commission based, I will just get like a check from my brokerage and I just deposit that in my account. And but I'll keep the check for like, because that's my my pay stub. Like I don't get a W-2 or anything. And I am still trying to navigate the whole tax situation because this will be my first year filing as an independent contractor. So I'm completely out of my realm of knowledge with that aspect of it, like how I should be filing or anything like that. So yeah, but that I would say I just like keeping it organized. Like I know exactly where that check is. But maybe I'll get more experience with that once I do start having more transactions. But probably just organization. I feel like that's more of a question for you because you're a financial person. So
Yeah, and I'll reach out to him independently. I just wanted to see if you wanted to take a shot at it. I'll definitely text you, Jonathan. Um, no, yeah, I appreciate your time, Taylor. And nobody else has any questions, go ahead, let them know where you're at, where they could find you, and yeah, go ahead, free advertising.
yeah, so my Instagram and my TikTok are both Taylor Paul or Taylor P Cells actually. Um, so both of those I'm very accessible on. You can send me a message or my website is Taylor Paulo Cells. I believe I have that linked in my both my Instagram and my TikTok. And on there you can schedule a time to have one-on-one communications with me through an initial consultation. And that's not just for like potential clients, that could be for anybody who just wants to chat about real estate, have a discussion, start making some connections. So yeah, Instagram, TikTok, and my website, all the best ways to get to me. And it'll have all my contact information on those too. So
Very cool. All right, Taylor, thank you for your time. We reached that 30-minute mark, and I'm going to
woo,
make a reel, post this on YouTube. Let's get
awesome.
this. Let's share this. Have a good
Yes.
night.
Thank you so much.
Bye.